moved with chilling calm, their warships cutting through modern defenses as though the centuries had been practice. Alien missiles found no purchase. Terran point defense swatted them from the void. Energy shields failed before the weight of kinetic slugs, each the size of cities. And through it all the humans said nothing. No broadcasts, no threats, only silence and fire. The Council's commanders screamed of impossibility. How could ancient ships overpower the fleets of today? But the truth was undeniable. Terran engineering was not outdated. It was timeless. Humanity had built its weapons not for a decade, not for a war, but for forever. One by one, Council ships fell. Some were not destroyed. They were captured, disabled, drawn into the Terran formation like trophies. The graveyard was becoming an army again, growing stronger with every passing hour. The stars themselves seemed darker, overshadowed by the Terran storm. The dread returns. When the battle ended, silence reigned again. But it was no longer the silence of death, it was the silence of dominance. The Terran fleet hovered in perfect order, engines glowing like suns, weapons armed, shields shimmering with ageless power. They did not pursue the few alien vessels that escaped. They did not chase glory. They simply held position, an iron wall resurrected from the grave. Across the galaxy, the story spread like fire. Whispers in markets, screams in palaces, secret debates in war councils. The humans are back. But the question remained, what else had they left behind? If one graveyard was an army, how many more slept beneath the void? How many storms had humanity preserved, waiting for the day they were needed? The Council, once smug in its history, now trembled, because history was not finished. The silence of Earth had not been an end, it had been preparation. And now the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity does not bury its fleets. It plants them. And when the soil of time is disturbed, the harvest is war. Epilogue: the galaxy shivers. In the cold halls of the council chamber, the leaders sat in wordless fear. For the first time in centuries, the balance of power had shifted, not by a new empire, not by diplomacy, but by ghosts who refused to die. The Terran fleet had not spoken a single word, but its message was clear enough. We are not gone, we are waiting. And if this was their forgotten arsenal, if this was only one fleet among many, then the galaxy itself was nothing more than a battlefield yet to be chosen. The stars were no longer safe, because humanity had returned. For centuries, the galaxy agreed on one truth: humanity was finished. The chronicles of the Council described them as a reckless, short-lived species that once clawed its way into the stars with raw determination and brutal machinery. They had fought wars against themselves, against their neighbors, and against the void itself. And then, just as quickly as they had risen, they were gone. No colonies answered hails. No fleets patrolled the trade lanes. Earth, the cradle of their fire, fell silent. For over 600 years, the records showed nothing. Not a transmission, not a trade caravan, not even a rogue pirate flying Terran colors. Civilizations grew comfortable with that silence. The Jorat called it the mercy of extinction. The Valith described humans as embers swallowed by cosmic winds. Even the Council itself spoke of them as a curiosity, a warning about the fragility of species that burned too hot, too fast. Among scholars and archivists, humanity became a ghost story. The warfolk of Saul, they whispered, who thought themselves eternal. The silence had become their epitaph. Whispers in the static. The illusion began to crack with a whisper. It came from the edge of map space, beyond a cluster of red dwarf stars where few bothered to travel. A survey vessel reported something unusual. faint signals buried in background static, too regular to be natural, too old to be modern. At first, the council dismissed it. Ancient probes often left echoes, broken transmissions looping endlessly until their power finally died. But then came the second report. A derelict station drifting among the asteroids. Its hull bore markings alien scanners could not place. When the data was cross-referenced with forbidden archives, an answer emerged that chilled the counselors. The markings were human. Excitement and fear rippled through the chambers. Were these ruins of Earth's lost empire? Could technology be salvaged? Or, as the more paranoid whispered, had the humans left traps behind, relics that could wake if disturbed? Exploration fleets were dispatched. What they found deepened the unease. A graveyard of ships. Hundreds of them drifting in darkness. Colossal vessels, their armored hulls scarred by battles older than any living species. Engines cold, weapons silent, no life signs, just steel corpses sleeping beneath the stars. The council declared it a relic site. They called it the Graveyard of Saul. The uneasy stillness. At first, the site was treated as treasure. Scholars cataloged hull designs never seen before. Engineers salivated over reactors that, though dead, suggested terrifying output. Even the military saw opportunity. Studying the graveyard might yield new tactics against rival powers. But the longer the fleets remained, the stranger the readings grew. Power surges flickered and died. Residual heat bled from hulls that should have been frozen for centuries. Beacons crackled with fragments of code no one could decrypt. Some captains reported pressure on their minds, like being watched by something vast and patient. Others swore the ships were not where they had been the day before, that entire cruisers shifted positions in the graveyard, drifting closer, as though herding the intruders. The council reassured its people. There is no threat, they declared. The humans are gone, these are only ruins. But no one truly believed it. The moment the dead stirred, the turning point came without warning. A science frigate, daring to dock with one of the colossal dreadnoughts, sent a boarding party through a fractured hangar bay. They reported darkness, silence, dust, and then lights. Ancient panels glowed, floors rumbled. Deep in the hull, reactors shuddered to life. The boarding party screamed for evacuation, but it was too late. Across the graveyard, one ship after another began to stir. First a flicker, then a hum, then full-throated roars as engines that had slept for 6 centuries bellowed plasma fire into the void. The graveyard was not a cemetery. It was an army in waiting. Council fleets panicked. Some fired weapons, desperate to cripple the awakening dreadnoughts. Their shots sparked harmlessly against shields that reignited as if they had never dimmed. Others attempted retreat, only to find Terran cruisers moving with flawless precision, cutting off escape routes. And then came the voices. Old Terran codes pulsed through the comms, still valid, still functional. No one could understand the language fully, but the message was clear in tone. The Guardians had woken, and intruders were not welcome. The Ghost Fleet assembles. Imagine the scene. 1,000 alien vessels, modern and sleek, trembling before machines older than their civilizations. The Terran fleet, what had been called ruins, moved as one. Dreadnoughts aligned into formation. Carriers launched swarms of strike craft, engines blazing like knives of fire. Cruisers flanked, corvettes darted, battleships rolled their gun batteries with a rhythm that spoke of drill, not decay. It was flawless, terrifyingly flawless. Aliens had expected chaos, malfunction, atrophy. Instead, they faced discipline beyond anything they had seen. Every vessel answered the same unspoken command. Every maneuver was precise, rehearsed, perfect. Weapons lit the void. Ancient kinetic slugs screamed through space at velocities no shield could absorb. Beams cut swaths across fleets that prided themselves on technological supremacy, shredded like paper before a storm. The Council's ships broke ranks. Their admirals wept in disbelief. Their soldiers muttered prayers. The sky itself seemed to darken beneath the shadows of war machines too vast, too relentless, to ever have been called dead. The panic of the living. Word spread like fire across the galaxy. The humans extinct forgotten had returned. Not as frail survivors, not as refugees, but as an army entombed in silence, waiting for a signal none could decipher. Civilizations debated furiously. Were these automatons, ships guided by machine minds, or had human descendants endured in hidden vaults, waiting centuries to strike? No answer emerged. The only certainty was this: the fleet obeyed orders, and those orders placed the Council in their sights. Trade networks collapsed as freighters refused to cross routes near the graveyard. Border worlds panicked, fearing that any moment the ancient warfolk would descend. Militaries scrambled for defenses they knew would not be enough. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy trembled. The legacy of preserved storms. When the last Council scout limped home from the battlefield, its transmission shook the chambers of power. It showed not destruction alone, but order. The Terran fleet had not pursued beyond the graveyard. They had not hunted the retreating ships. Instead, they had arrayed themselves in a silent wall, guardians of their resting place. And in that stillness came the final realization.